Could you see? Yeah. So say 4321, this is router. Again, having say gigabyte Ethernet to gigabyte Ethernet. And you could use the console cable to connect this one on the console, and again use the same PC to go to the settings. So go to this desktop terminal, press OK. So the router is still pressing. Would you like to enter initial configuration? No. Yep, the router is activated. So in router, you also go by the same logic that we did for the switch. So you go to the configure terminal, you mention the host name, you do the enable secret class. So the enable secret class is to access the privilege access mode. And then these one line console password, Cisco login and exit. These are to access the user executive mode. You know, or you would actually, you should know from your introduction to networks. Then we do the virtual terminal lines from 0 to 4. We could also do from 0 to 15, that to access these lines, the password should be Cisco and then the login. If we do that, I mean, if we don't have the time now, otherwise I show you. So if you just do until this, before the service password encryption, and then you see the show run, you would see all the passwords in the plain text. There would be Cisco mentioned on it, there would be class mentioned on it, and if anyone has the access, or if anyone accessed by accident, they would know the passwords in plain text. But if you do this service password encryption, you would see, and then do the show run, you would see that all those passwords that were in the plain text, they are encrypted now. Now that will not be written as Cisco, it will be written as some combination of letters and alphabets. So people would not be able to see the passwords in plain text. So this command is very useful. Then the second thing is how, like when we are doing the basic router configuration, we do the message of the day banner, right? That this would be for authorized access. We will go through all of this in the lab activities. So don't worry if you think that you're not able to understand. We will do that in the lab tomorrow and day after. Again, as a good practice, or not as a good practice, if you want to have this running configuration or all the changes that you did in here, if you want to have those changes reflected on the next reload, or when you restart your router, you do the copy running configuration to startup configuration. uh, Again, there's this dual stack topology. So nowadays we support both IPv4 as well as IPv6 addresses. In this topology, you could see that this line above, it's the IPv4, and this one below is the IPv6, right? The dual stack topology suggests that this one, like .10, would be 192.168.10.10, and then this, if you want to go to the address of this one, it would be 192.168.11.10. Again, like .1 prefix is for IPv4, double colon 1 would be for IPv6, and this is a 32-bit, this is a 128-bit one. So this is for all the routers as well as switches and the PCs. This is a good way to show everything at one place. So how to configure the router interfaces? Similar to switch interfaces, we need to configure router interfaces as well. But as a sort of difference, you could see that switch did have from fast Ethernet to sort of 24 fast Ethernet line and 2 gigabit Ethernet lines. Whereas if you see for router, it has only 2 gigabit Ethernet line. So it supports the fast coverage. It has the intercity location and such. But anyhow, so that would not matter. So to configure the router interfaces, you need to configure at least one IP address, whether it's IPv4 or IPv6. So you need to configure one IP address, and you need to again activate the line by issuing the command no shutdown. Alternatively, you can mention the description. For example, in this one, in this router, you could mention that this one is say LAN 1, this one is LAN 2, this one is LAN 3, this one is LAN 4. So you could have these description. It's quite good when you want to debug or you want to see the running configuration. It's quite understandable to have this description mentioned so that you quickly know which interfaces or which network or which subnet we are talking about. For example, this one shows how to configure interfaces on R1. We go to Gigabyte Ethernet 000. We assign an IP address with subnet mask. We assign IPv6, and we provide the description that it's linked to LAN 1, then no shutdown exit. Similarly, we can do this for all the three interfaces as shown in this topology. But if you just to see what we have in here, we just have one. So if you want to do this, you go there, router, enable, configure terminal, say interface gigabit ethernet 0 by 0 by 0. So we have now gone to the interface, right? This one shows that we are in interface. IP address 19, or we, for in our case it was 172.17.99.1 suppose, and the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. And similarly, you could configure the IPv6, and at the end, I will not consider IPv6 for now, just for the sake of time. Show no shutdown, so the interface is changed to up and then exit. This is how you set this interface. There's again an important concept. Yeah, this is quite interesting. So it's IPv4 loopback interface. So this IPv4 loopback interface is a logical interface. It's just used for testing purposes or to increase the interfaces, and it is used for internal purposes to the router. It has no physical capability. So the loopback interfaces are commonly used in lab environment just to create additional interface and to test something, right? So these are not used for anything else. So how do you configure? It's very simple. You use command interface loopback and then provide a loopback number. For example, if I go here, interface loopback, maybe what, 0. So you see that the interface loopback is up, and it's again changed. The protocol is also changed to up. So if you see the show interface brief, oops, okay, I need to exit, show interface brief, show interface only. You'd see that there would be, need to find that out, there would be a loopback. Yeah, this, so loopback 0, we have created this one, so it's up and the protocol is up as well. By the way, I did not configure the, would it work? Yep, the IP address, right? You need to assign the IP address to it. So for the sake of time, I would not do it. Then how do you verify? This is the last part. I know that we might go over our assigned time, but just last 5 minutes. So once you have configured everything, configured switches, configured router, how do you verify your connectivity, or how do you troubleshoot if there are any problems? So for that, you can use these commands. So show IP interface brief for IPv4 setting, and then show IPv6 interface brief for IPv6 settings. It would display the summary of all the interface settings. Like I was not using the show. Let's assign anything to it, say 17, like anything, 255.255.255.0, and exit, again exit. So it was show IP interface brief, right? Show IP. See, now you can see that it has the loopback, it has the VLAN, it has the gigabit Ethernet. So I just configured 2.2, and then in here we did configure this one. So if you issue this command, you'd know that what interfaces are up and what interfaces are down, what is the IP address of the particular interface. Show running config interface would show you the config interface of the network. So this is an instance of that. So brief, we just issued that. If you issue a show IPv6 interface brief, it would show you IPv6 addressing. Then show IPv6, you could also use this show IPv6 interface and then specify the interface. This would, rather than giving you the output for every interface, it would just give you the output for one interface. And then if, for example, as shown in this figure, it has IPv6 enabled, it has these multicast addresses, it has this link local addresses, and it has global unicast. So one more important point that I wanted to discuss had I done network packet tracer was that we would just be issuing this global unicast. So when you configure IPv6 address, you issue command IPv6 address, and then you issue this address, right? But interestingly, when you issue this, a link local address is created automatically, which is started from FE80. So if our address is starting from FE80, you understand that this is a link local address, right? So you do not need to issue this, but when you issue global unicast address, it automatically assigns a link local address. So this is again the similar thing that we discussed. Yeah, this is again interesting how to verify roots. So show IP root command and show IPv6 root command. If you issue this, it would show you the IP roots. It would have a C and a L. So C means that it is directly connected, and a L means that it's a network. So C is sort of a network, like it has 192.168.10.0, right? If we go into this dual stack topology, where is it? Okay, so this is this one, right? But if we need to connect to that network, we need one default gateway. So that will be .1, right? So this will be this one. Again, IPv6 would have 128-bit the interfaces, 128-bit mask, sorry, and IPv4 would have a 32-bit mask. So this is quite interesting when you want to know like the what is the IP route, if you want to trace route the originality of the packet. So it is used quite useful in that. A C we already discussed that it is used in routing table. So if it is up and C means it's a direct connection. This is the last bit. So if you want to filter the commands, right, you do not want to have all the functionality listed and you do not want to go over it, you have the capability what we call the filter command. So you have 4 filtering parameters. One is section, one is include, one's exclude, and then begin. So when you use the show command and enter, say, show running config, right, we did use this, and we saw that it gave us the output having everything. But if we just want to see one section, say line vty, we use this section command. It's used with this character, and when you insert this and use section line vty, the output will only show line vty. Again, include means if you just use show IP interface brief, it shows every IP interface. But if you say just include those who are up, the status is up, then it would just include those whose status is up. So it's quite useful to limit the access. Similarly for begin as well as for exclude. So command history features. So if you just press the up key or the down key, you would know that what are the most recent commands that you used. Show history, we can see show history. It showed what we issued. It has the buffer of 10 commands. But if you want to increase this buffer, you could use terminal history size. So for example, terminal history size, say 100. Then now it would store commands up to 100. So a little test of knowledge, if we do not have time, I understand. So that's all right. I will upload the change slide so you could test it yourself. There was this again. So yeah, on Netagate, last points are that you read the chapter notes. It has very good syntax checker. So you please follow that, check your syntax, whether what you are writing is having correct syntax. Particularly useful to those who have not attended CE 155, so you would know how the basic settings work. And then attempt the module practice and the chapter quiz, and try all the packet tracer activities on the Netcad. And if you have any problems, we could always discuss that. In the lab tomorrow and day after,